Thank you. Good morning to all of you, brothers and sisters of the AFL-CIO. Big congratulations to your re-elected President, Mario Solento. Let's give him a big round of applause. I want you to know that I would have voted for Mario Solento if I was a delegate. In truth, I would have thought twice after I heard that he listens to Taylor Swift. Not that that's a bad thing, but I just didn't know that about Mario. But he's been an extraordinary leader, and he is right. The past 4 years have seen more progress legislatively for the labor movement than the preceding 50. I can tell you as a person who was there on every issue, it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for Mario Solento and the AFL-CIO. So let's give him another round of applause. To the entire executive committee, to Dennis Hughes, let's give Dennis Hughes a round of applause for all his leadership and good efforts. To Karen McGee and the teachers and her leadership, let's give her a round of applause. We also have a number of members of my staff who are here today. My counsel, Alfonso David, my secretary, Bill Mulrow, my chief of staff, Melissa DeRosa. Why don't you guys stand and thank they've been working with the AFL-CIO. And a partner of mine in government who's been there on every one of these issues. You're going to hear him in a few minutes, Speaker Carl Hastie, who's here also. Let me say this, I have tremendous respect for the brothers and sisters of the AFL-CIO. Our relationship goes back 30 years when you decided to elect a fellow named Mario Cuomo. I don't know if you remember that name. And I was the 23-year-old campaign manager of his campaign. He was running against Ed Koch, who at that time was a superhero, Ed Koch, God rest his soul. He was mayor of New York, and he was going to run for governor, and then he was going to run for president, and then he was going to run for the heavens. And there was no way Mario Cuomo could win. But Mario Cuomo had one thing with him, and that was organized labor. And you made Mario Cuomo governor of the state of New York just on the back of labor, and I'll never forget it. And I went to run for attorney general. And I had been knocked on my rear end before, and I needed a friend, and I went to labor, and Dennis Hughes and George Gresham and AFL-CIO was there for me, and you made me attorney general, and I would not be governor of the state of New York without your help, and I will never, ever, ever forget it. Now, over that period of time, we've had a lot of challenges. We've had terrorist attacks, we've had recessions, we've had hostile administrations. But I'll tell you the truth. I think these past few years have been as bad as anything we have seen. And we've done what New Yorkers do. We step up and we face the challenge because we have the best organized workforce in the United States of America. That's why. And I can tell you firsthand because I've been in the trenches. We had Hurricane Sandy. It was unlike anything we've seen before. But our utility workers were out there, and DC 37 was out there, and NYPD was out there, and they saved people's lives. We had 7 feet of snow in Buffalo, New York. Now, Buffalo gets snow, but even Buffalo never had 7 feet of snow before. 7 feet of snow, CSCA was out there. They were shoveling while their own families were still locked in their own homes. That's what makes New York, New York. We have a mass transit system that is over capacity, carrying millions of more people than it was ever designed to do. But the TWU and the LIRR workers make it work, and they make it work every day. We have new stresses on education. That's why we're now funding education to the highest level in history. We have more teacher training, but we are fortunate to have the best teachers in the United States of America with NYS and with the UFT. Now, these are not New York issues. These are national issues. We feel them here at home, but they're the same issues all across the country. And Mario's right, there's a presidential election, and it's an important election, and we have to elect Hillary Clinton, the next president of the United States. She understands it, she gets it. I was part of the Clinton administration for 8 years, and she gets and understands our issues, the problems, and the solutions. But also, let's be honest, just electing a new president is not going to make the problems disappear automatically. We're still going to have to organize and fight to resolve those issues. And there is one fundamental problem that is driving this election on both sides of the aisle. You have a frustration and an anger and an anxiety among the working men and women of this country, New York and all across the country. And these talking heads on TV, they're trying to figure out why. Why do you think they feel this way? Why is there this voter anger? You don't need a crystal ball, and you don't need to be a talking head on TV, because the working men and women of this country have gotten screwed over the past 30 years. That's why there's an anger. They have gotten a raw deal. The way this country works is this basic fairness. And when there's more productivity and the country's doing well, it's shared with the workers as well as the management. That was always the deal. Up until about 30 years ago, productivity went up 97%. Wages went up 91%. You produce more, you make more, the company's making more profit, you get paid more. Over the past 30, productivity went up 74%. Wages went up 9%. You know what that means? That means the middle class are going backwards. 9%, that's basically zero. Over the same period of time, houses went up 20%. College education went up 60%. Consumer goods went up 30%. Your middle class is going backwards. The working men and women in this country are going backwards. And they know it and they feel it. And then to aggravate things, the top 1% got a 138% increase. This nation had a policy, a trade policy that said, we're going to get rid of the manufacturing jobs. And we're going to send them overseas, and we're going to have the high-tech jobs. That was the plan. Except they missed a couple of points. First of all, you sent away the manufacturing jobs. We took the high-tech jobs. There are only 7 high-tech jobs. Intellectual property, we created, the other countries steal it. And when you gave away the manufacturing jobs, what was going to happen to the displaced workers? Well, we'll retrain them. Retrain them to what? You're going to teach me how to be a computer guru now at 58 years old? It's not going to happen. That is the fundamental tension that is going on in this country and in this state. And that is what is driving the anger. And it's right, and that's what we have to correct. And that's what we're working to correct here in New York. And then you've had short-term aggravants. 2007, you had the mortgage meltdown. It was a Wall Street scam, total scam, except it hurt individual homeowners all across this country. And what has happened since 2007? The bankers got bailed out, and the homeowners lost the equity in their home. And now you say America works for all. Well, really, it doesn't. The workers are getting a smaller and smaller piece of the pie. And maybe it's a coincidence, but as the wages for workers have gone down, there's also been a diminution of the power of the labor unions in this country. And I don't believe it's a coincidence. I believe the labor unions are how we equalize the power at the negotiating table. And that's what collective bargaining does. It makes it a fair table for all. Now, these are not just New York problems, they're national problems. But what we do here in New York will make a national difference. When New York acts, the rest of the country follows. I was in Washington for 8 years. I spoke in every state in the nation. I was in President Clinton's cabinet. And when you're in the cabinet, they basically send you out as a surrogate speaker. So I'd go out speaking about whatever. And somehow, wherever I was, whatever state I was in, they could always figure out that I was from New York. I'm not sure how they did it. I think it was the tie I was wearing or something. But inevitably, they would come up to me at the end of the speech and they would say, well, what are you doing in New York about this? Whatever the problem, health care, construction, whatever it is. What are you doing in New York? Because New York's destiny is when New York acts, other places follow. So not only are we going to solve these problems in New York, we're going to solve these problems in a way that radiates all across the country. That's why Mario Cilento was right when he talked about the great record we had over the past 4 years. And I was proud to stand with the AFL-CIO for the first time ever and pass the nation's best paid family leave program to say treat workers with respect and allow them to work and also live their lives. That's why I was proud to stand with the AFL-CIO, pass the first ever in the nation women's equality agenda and pay equity bill and send that message nationwide. That's why we work so hard with the RWDSU and 32BJ on the Exploited Workers Task Force, where they're victimizing undocumented workers because the workers are afraid to complain, they're afraid to go to law authority, and they're being victimized by unscrupulous employers. That's why I was proud to renew the 9/11 bill and pass the patient safe handling bill and to protect utility and transport workers by making assault a felony and by honoring our veterans and the veteran service by giving them the pension credits they deserve. And that's why what we're doing in this state is so important. When we have the largest reconstruction program in this state in over 50 years. We've invested $100 billion to rebuild New York and to start with our infrastructure. Why? Because this nation and this state have been standing still long enough. Countries all around the globe are building and developing and modernizing, and we're standing right where we are. You look at airports, any airport across the world that you travel to, and you see state-of-the-art, and then you look at what New York has at LaGuardia and JFK. That's not what New York is all about. We've allowed our infrastructure to deteriorate when we should be investing to create real jobs. $100 billion we're going to invest. We're building a new JFK, a new LaGuardia, roads and bridges all across this state, new upstate airports. We're going to finish Penn Farley. We're going to build double track on the Long Island Railroad. 250,000 jobs, every job a union job. That's what we're going to do. And my friends, that's what this fight on 421A is all about. And they try to make it complicated, but it's very, very simple. This is a government program to provide affordable housing, which is desperately needed, especially in the city of New York, where we have a real affordable housing crisis. But it is a government program. It's providing a government subsidy. And I have two problems with the program. First, it's an affordable housing program, but it doesn't provide the affordability for long enough. I was housing secretary when the Section 8 crisis happened. Section 8 crisis was when this nation did the Section 8 program. The Section 8 program ran for 20 years. And at the end of 20 years, the units expired. And when they passed the program, everybody said, well, 20 years, that's never going to happen 20 years. Well, you know what? 20 years happened. And all these units expired at the same time. And the owners were now kicking out tenants from all these subsidized units all across the country. I worked for 2 years on it. We're not going to make the same mistake again. Affordable housing means affordable housing for the useful life of the unit, and we're not going to pay for half a loaf. Second issue is the way the city proposed the law, which came to Albany. The program does not pay union wages. Why? Because the developers don't want to be forced to use union labor. Because if they are left on their own, they want to use non-union labor. And at one time, in this city, you would never dream of building non-union construction. Ask Gary LaBarbera. But more and more, you see developers using non-union labor. And now they want government to validate that decision by saying government will fund the program that pays non-union labor. And they're criticizing me, saying, well, I want to pay more just because the unions want the union jobs. I want to pay more so we have union jobs because government shouldn't pay a poverty wage. That's why I want to pay more. I want to pay more. I want to pay more because I want us to have skilled labor on that job and build it right the first time and build it to last. I want to pay union labor because I want benefits and health care so the government doesn't have to subsidize it. I want union labor because I want a real apprentice program so we're training the next generation of workers. I want union labor because this is a union town. We have the highest number of unionized people in this state, and I believe in the labor movement. I want union labor because they built the middle class in this country, and they're going to rebuild the middle class in this country. That's why I want union labor. I want union labor because they're a force for social justice, not just in this state, but all across this country. And my last point is this, my friends, and Mario said it. I come from a time when the AFL-CIO and the AFL-CIO movement was an unbeatable force. And I believe that's not yesterday, I believe that's today, and that is tomorrow. You have to remember who you are as the AFL-CIO, 2.5 million members. Mario's right, all part of the same family. It's not black, white, gay, straight, upstate, downstate, public, private. Fighting for the middle class, fighting for working men, fighting for working families, fighting for fairness, fighting for justice, fighting for economic justice, so that everyone believes in the American dream and everyone can do better and there's mobility for everyone. And when you stand up and lock arms, you cannot be beaten. There is no issue that you will lose on, but you have to go first. If the AFL-CIO comes together and stands together, we can make this state greater than it's ever been. Not just rebuild it to what it was. We'll make it the best state in the nation. And we will take that example and we will show every state in the country, you can do this too. You can have a state that works for the middle class and honors working families. And that nation and that legacy is what our mutual fight is all about. And I will always be there with you in that contest. Thank you and God bless you.